Hello, good day, wherever you're watching this from. Good day to you all, and you're welcome to the Foundations of Editing and Graphics. Foundation of Editing and Graphics in Communication. So, my name is Ola, and expert in this area. I've got over 8 years of experience as a practitioner, designing books, and also publishing the same. So, in this particular lectures, I'll be taking you to the series of concepts, structs, and also hands-on training on how to navigate your way towards understanding this entire course. Please have an open mind, and it is very important that you are with your pen, your pens, your pencils, your notebook, your notepad, and be ready to do some research along as I teach this course. Right, just before we begin, could you please take a moment to scan this QR code to check yourself in? Yes, this is a way of you showing that you are here and you truly are part of this lesson. Do that now. All right, do that now. Yeah, this is my face, putting a face to myself so you know you are always teaching you on this course. And then, yeah, just focus on the QR code and do the needful so we can move on. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's move on. So today I'll be introducing you to this particular curriculum and then the idea of what we'll be learning about today. So open your heart and take a look at what we'll cover today. In today's lesson, I'll be walking you through the definitions of editing and graphics, the scope of editing and graphics in the media, and also the historical evolution of the editing and graphics within the global and Nigerian context. And as well, I'll be leading you through some roles of editing in media to ensure credibility, and of course, the concept of gatekeeping and the meaning of constructions of meaning will be also be discussing this. So I'd say by the end of this particular video, you should be able to define editing and graphics in communication contexts. You should be able to explain the scope and functions of editing within the various concepts. Be able to also to trace the development of editing and practices globally as well as in Nigeria, and analyze the role of editing in ensuring media credibility. As well, you will have a clear understanding as per the processes of shaping meaning using editing. So let's begin. What is editing? Think about this. What is editing? You can put it in the chat if you have some idea before I share with you my definition, which I expect you to put down in your notes. What is editing? Okay, editing is the process of reviewing, is a process of revising, is a process of refining. But what are you refining? You're refining content just before publication. So we can put it together to say that editing is a process of reviewing, revising, and also refining content before they are published. So the purpose of editing is for you to have a thorough look at the content, have a thorough look at the context of such content, and ensure that the intended meaning as originally conceived by the sender is improved so that the audience, the receiver, comprehend it. And it involves various corrections of errors, improving clarity reasons, and also to ensure accuracy. When you edit, you add, and then you remove. When you are editing, you are ensuring that the content aligns with the editorial standard. We can as well call this the out style. And also editing to ensure that it aligns with the audience expectation, to ensure that your audience are able to comprehend the meaning that has been encoded into the channel. Okay, the key functions of editing. What are these key functions? Think about it yourself. What are the key? Why should we edit? Why should we edit a book? Why should we edit magazines? Why should we edit newspaper? Why should we edit videos? Why should we edit audios? Why should we edit even anything before it goes out there? You edit because you have a goal in mind. You have something you want to achieve. You have a meaning you want to share. You have an intent to convey a thought to the other party. So you need to be sure that whatsoever you have said is put together, removing all the noise and ensuring that the message is kept for delivery. So you edit because you need to correct. You correct grammars, you correct spellings errors, you correct syntax errors. What are syntax? Syntax is structure. Spellings are, you know what that means? Perhaps the missing letters, placement of letters, or in fact, grammatical errors itself. All right. Spelling can be correct, but it may be incorrect within the context. For instance, writing for a British standard publisher, you're using American English. So you can edit to correct spelling and edit to correct it within a specific context. You can edit for clarification, meaning that you're editing to ensure that the meaning and the structures are clear. The next thing is that you can edit for verification, ensuring that the facts are truly factual and that they are accurate. They are not misleading, so you don't misinform. You also edit to ensure that there is standard. Standard in terms of style, in terms of formatting, what I earlier referred to as house styles. Now, when there is consistency, you are setting a standard. You are trying to maintain a minimum standard that your readers should be familiar with. This standard is psychological, sometimes physical, set, and it is defined. And when you do this, you are building a brand. Standard is required for branding. Standard is required for branding. When you are editing, you can edit to suit a brand. You can edit to suit a purpose. You can edit for generic reasons. You can edit for audience reasons. You can edit to repurpose in whatsoever context. Have a goal in mind because you need to have a clearly defined goal in order for you to achieve your goal as an editor. Okay. Let's move to the other component. Remember, this is editing and graphics. So we've tidied the aspect of editing. Now let's take a look at the part of graphics as a different concept. So what is graphics? Put it in the chat. What is graphics? Make an attempt. This is a way for you to think your brain. Let your brain engage. When we talk about graphics, what comes to mind? Flyers, banners, infographics. Think about it, graphics. Okay, graphics refers to any sort of visual element used to communicate information. This includes images, it includes illustrations, it includes charts, it includes diagrams. and of course layout. If you want to know more about layouts, there is another course which you can click on the card above if you're interested in that. It's a course on layouts design, manuscript layouts design. But in this particular course, we're focusing on editing and graphics. So graphics refers to visual element used to communicate information. This could be in form of images, in form of graphics, in form of illustrations, in form of charts, in form of diagram, in form of layouts. And I often say that we need to know what images are. We need to know what pictures are. We need to know what illustrations are. We need to know what charts are. We need to know what diagrams are. We need to know what colors are and how they communicate. You can use colors to communicate. You can use pictures to communicate. You can use images to communicate. You can use photographs to communicate. You can use diagrams to communicate. You can use map charts to communicate. And you can even use layout to communicate. Okay. Let's deal with something about images and photographs, I think, and then I'll say pictures. What is images? What are they? What are images? Sorry. What are photographs? What are pictures? Do you think they are the same or they are different? Do your research. The first person to get the answer will earn a special points. All right. I'll come back to this later. Let's move on. Let's talk about functions of graphics. Graphics enhances understanding. Beyond text, graphics sort of add explainers, add imagination. Put a picture to it. I'm giving you a clue there. It enhances understanding. And it also helps attract audience attention. And third is that it simplifies complex information. You can imagine a large chunk of data being put into bar charts. That's summarizing it, simplifying it for easy and quick grasp of communication, presenting it in percentage. And again, it helps support storytelling. It helps to support storytelling. Now, you can imagine when you're editing and you're editing graphics for effective communication. Now you should have a sense of how these two works together. Just before I proceed with my teaching, attempt this quiz. In the early print era, the primary purpose of editing was what? Was it to entertain readers? Was it to correct physical and textual errors? Was it to promote political ideas? Or was it to just design page layouts and more? Okay. A quick one. Way back in history, they had reasons to print. And I'll say they had reasons to create impression. I'll use the word impression. And these impressions are carved out on a particular surface, and then some set of ink put on it, and then they place it on the print area. And by so doing, will come about the name impression, because it's creating impression. When you stamp your feet on the floor, you're creating an impression on the floor. And then your footprint will be made. Now think about this and attempt this. In the early print era, the primary purpose of editing was what? Was it to correct physical textual errors? Was it to design page layouts, or to promote political ideas, or to entertain readers? The answer here is to correct physical and textual error. Remember, when you make impression, you have textual details, and it is very physical. So the first stage was what? To create an impression. And impression is physically visible. All right. Let's move on to the scope of editing in the media. Well, okay, there are different scopes and it cut across different domains. So when you're editing for print, it's different from when you're editing for broadcast. When you're editing for print, for instance, even within print itself is different. When you're editing for newspapers, it's different from when you're editing for magazine. It's different from when you're editing for online. It's different from when you're editing for newsletters. It's different from when you're editing for bulletin. It is different in different contexts. It's different from when you're editing for flyers. It's different from when you're editing for editorials. It's different from when you're editing for opinion pieces. It's different from when you're editing for features. So there must be a defined scope. It's different from when you're editing for books. So editing operates across multiple domains. The same for broadcast is different when you're editing for audio, for radio. And when you're editing for radio, you are editing to maximize time and to ensure that you're communicating effectively. It's different from when you're editing for video. And even when within the audio, when you're editing for a magazine program, it's different from when you're editing for news, it's different from when you're editing for adverts. You can see these things are all sort of connected, and then it has a pictorial diagram that they are all under each other, and then they have their specific context. You need to understand this. Now, if you're editing for video, for a live broadcasts, when you see a video and then you see graphics of giving you information about the name of the person being presented, what is happening, or you see live news breaking and then it's an animated showing, all of these are graphics. Or you see infographics about maps, and then during the COVID time, you see red, color coding, gray, and then you see white, you see amber colors. These are all editings. You see how important this course is. Editing and graphics in communication. I would say editing and graphics for effective communication. All right, let's go. Print. In print, you edit for context. For example, in newspapers, magazines, books, or online. For broadcast, you edit for context and scope within TV or radio. And for digital, you edit for website, for logos, and social media. And there are different kind of social media, and they have different formats and templates. When you're editing for TikTok, it's different from when you're editing for LinkedIn. It's different from when you're editing for your website. It's different from when you're editing for Instagram. Instagram uses square for posts, and then for story you use one that is 1920 by 1080. That's the dimension. And when doing that for YouTube, you do the direct opposite of that. You edit for vertical, you edit for horizontal. You need to know the differences. When you're also editing for advertising and PR, large board, billboards, special surfaces like street sign, walls, vehicles, windshield, a different kind of editing. So for how the advert that's that is displayed on the train, you need to know the context and what materials and how to communicate, because train is moving. Think about the typeface, the styles, and more. Campaign materials, branded content, editing to brand. I hope you're taking this in. Take it in slowly. Take notes. Process the information you're taking. Whenever you have questions, put it in the chat. I'll actively respond to them. These are the scopes of editing. Next on my slide is the types of editing. What type of editing do I have? We have copy editing, which focuses on editing for grammars, for punctuations, and for styles. You look out for grammatical errors, you look out for punctuation error, you look out for stylistics error. Okay. Now, we also have substantive editing, which focuses on more bigger content like structure, the content organization. It's more holistic. Substantive editing. And then we have the proofreading, which is the final error checking before publication. Now, I want to make a quick distinction between copy editing and proofreading. Copy editing comes before the layout is done, and proofreading comes after the layout has been done, but before publication. If you want to know more, check the card. There is a full course on manuscripts, layouts, development, and related matter, copy editing, more. All right. We also got visual editing, which is a selection and refinement of images for effective engagement and communication. And now I'd like to take you through the historical evolution of editing globally and of course within the context of Nigeria. I would like you to pay attention more carefully because we'll be doing this in a very interesting way. Now, I'm going to be tinkering your brain out. I ask you to imagine that you're stepping into a printing workshop in the 1500th century, and the room is dim. The air is thick with ink and metals. The printer stands over a roll of tiny metal letters, arranging each one after the other, piece by piece. Letter A goes there, B goes there. If you want to spell key, you have a particular meter for K, you have a particular meter for E, you have a particular meter for Y, and they have to be arranged in a particular order in that inverse way so that when you place it on the surface with the ink impression, you have an impression. Now, a printer stands over the rows of tiny metal letters. They are arranging each one by hand, and there is no delete. No delete key. If you've missed it, you've missed it. No spell check. No undo buttons like you have today. Every word must be physically constructed. Each and every word. And this is where editing begins because you can't do that afterwards. You can't delete, you can't, backspace, you can't press delete, you can't space bar. It has to be done accurately right from the onset. Okay, what does this look like? It is a professional task that has been entrusted to professionals who are patient, who knows what they are doing, who try as much as possible to spend their time to ensure that what is published is correct and error-free. And they do this right from the moment of typing. That's exactly where editing began. Not a sophisticated profession, but a necessity. If a single letter was misplaced, the entire meaning could collapse. Proofreading at this stage was not about style, it was not about clarity, it was about survival of meaning. One mistake could mean reprinting an entire page, and at a very great cost. And the entire point is that the early print era established the first principles of editing. Number one principle is precision. And it matters because errors are expensive. Now, I want you to move forward to the 18th century and the 19th century. Newspaper began to emerge as a powerful and social institutions. Informations were no longer statics. They are now dynamics. The dynamics into the play. It is timely, political, and influential. With the shifts comes new need. As we evolve, there were new needs. Sometimes someone must take action to ensure that these needs are met. And it takes responsibility to publish what is right. And someone must take responsibility for what is published. This is the birth of the editor as a role. So the person who takes that responsibility is the editor. Editors are no longer just correcting errors. They are making decisions. They are ensuring that what becomes the news, what makes it to the public, is newsworthy. So they ask questions such as, what is newsworthy? What should be published? What should be suppressed? Editing becomes a position of authority. It becomes something quite significant that one person can decide what many others know. It moves from the printing table to the center of public life. The editor becomes a gatekeeper. That is what leads to gatekeeping theory of the media. They are the gatekeepers of information and, by extension, the shaper of public opinion. Because whosoever that keeps the gate determines what goes in, what goes out, and what goes in determines what you know. What comes out determines what shapes the public. Okay. I'm putting this into an organization now. In the early print era, we have manual typesetting and proofreading. Following that, we had the rise of newspapers formalizing editorial roles. Then we have the 20th century with professionalism, the professionalization of journalism. And we have the digital era where we have real-time editing and online publishing as we have it today. Okay, let's take a quiz. What major development led to the formalization of editorial role? Is it the invention of radio, the use of social media, the rise of newspapers, or the development of photography? Attempt this. Is it? Could it be invention of radio, social media, rise of newspapers, or development of photography? Okay. And my answer is the rise of newspaper. By now, you should know that that is the answer. Okay. In Nigeria, this is another phase of story. Within our context, let's bring it home. Imagine in the 19th century that the printing press arrives not just as a neutral tool, but as an instrument of influence. The missionaries, they began circulation of materials. They were using print to spread religious ideas and Western education. And the first newspaper was birthed in 1859. It's called Koko Ìwé Ìròyìn fún àwọn Yorùbá àti Ẹ̀gbá. That is a newspaper for the Ẹ̀gbá people and the Yoruba people. At this stage, editing serves as a very specific purpose. Preservation of message. They wanted to introduce Christianity. They wanted to teach people how to read and write. But beyond that, there are underlining meaning. But I would keep it at that for the purpose of this lecture. When you advance to a higher level of courses, like doing issues in Nigerian mass media, history of Nigerian mass media, political communication, you see that beyond the surface of Western education and transmission of religious ideas, there were some ideological hegemonic influence in there. But at this stage, editing serves a very specific purpose, which is the preservation of the message. And these contents, they are controlled, they are structured, they are aligned with missionary agenda. Now, you're getting what I'm saying. There's an agenda behind the whole thing. But something begins to change. As the colonial period progresses, Nigerian voices begin to emerge in print. People started contributing. Newspapers became a tool of resistance and political awakening. In fact, editing was no longer just about correctness. It was about, advocacy, about nationalism. We have people like Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo now contributing to the story, having their own newspapers and using the press to press home their agenda. Editors were not just professional, they were now becoming activists. They were becoming intellectuals, they were becoming political actors. They asked, how do we frame our reality? How do we construct this message to get the best of meaning and engagement? How do we challenge the colonial narrative? Then, editing in this area, in this particular era, in this particular season and point in history became a form of power. So if you're an editor, you've got power. So the way a story is written and presented can influence the national consciousness, can influence how people understand. They list also a theory in communication called framing theory. And we also have priming. We have agenda setting. Well, coming after independence, the Nigerian press expanded rapidly. Newspapers multiplied. Media houses grew in sizes and influence. Editing became more structured. Newsroom developed formal processes, and there are now rules like stop editors, line editors, so that stop editors could undo copy refinement and ensure that editorial standard was sort of stabilized. So this period represented a time and season of growth and institutionalization. Editing is now part of an organized media system, not just for individual effort. Okay, I hope you're following. Where the colonial press area, where the missionary and the nationalist publication was the talk of the town. Then we have the post-independence expansions of newspaper industry. And following that, we had the military. The military. Editorial control and censorship came into place. So the military season was sort of more complex because it was a complex tone. Editing operated under pressure. Citizenship was a thing of, I don't know, you just have to protect yourself as a citizen. Censorship became a reality. Certain stories cannot be published. Certain words cannot be used. Editors must navigate the risk carefully, otherwise they risk the chances of being imprisoned, persecuted, sometimes maybe killed. In this context, editing becomes strategic, becomes conscious, and sometimes coded. So the headline, a phrase, or even the placement of a story can carry hidden meaning. So editors are now learning how to communicate within a constraint. This period sort of teaches us the importance of editing, and also an important lesson that editing is not always free. It is shaped by political and institutional power. Editing is not an independent thing. It is shaped by our thought, our reasoning, our background, our interests. So now consider a contemporary era when Nigerian media landscape has transformed again. Digital platforms have been disrupted by the traditional publishing, have disrupted the traditional publishing approaches, and anyone with a smartphone can produce and distribute content. Editing now faces new challenges like speed over accuracy, viral content over verified information. And then we have audience pressures and algorithm influence at different times. We add opportunities, expanding. Independent media platform, I imagine. Investigative journalists are gaining visibility. Diverse voices are entering into public discourse. And editing today must be balanced. We must think about professionalism. We must think about technological tools that we use and how they are shaping and influencing our communication processes and meaning constructions. We must think about the audience expectations too. Let me offer you a concrete example. A growth of a national newspaper reflects institutional maturity, right? And then the rise of independent digital platform reflects democratization of media. And of course, social media reflects decentralization of editorial control. But there's something critical that I need to ask you. Which Nigerian media organization do you follow? Do you trust them? Why do you trust them? And why don't you? Have you noticed poor editing in any news story before? Have you noticed them using the wrong photos for the wrong story or manipulating previous story because they want to send a message? When you start asking yourself this question, you are engaging. This shifts you from being a passive listener or consumer of information to an active reader, an active reflection. So, one thing I want you to take home in this historical context is that editing in Nigeria is not just a technical process. It is shaped by history, by politics, by technology, by society. Don't forget the phases. Don't forget the phases. Colonial press era, post-independence era, military era, contemporary era, and like I've shared with you, the growth of national dailies, the rise of independent media voices has shaped things. Okay, thank you for listening. And I want you to understand this that there is a connection between all of these things. So, where globally, whether globally or even locally or in Nigeria, editing has always evolved in response to one central control, one central question. And that question is who controls information and how is it presented? This particular central question reinforces the transition into our next concept, which is editing as gatekeeping and meaning construction. But before we go on there, answer this question. During Nigeria's nationalist phase, editors were best described as is it neutral observers, technical assistants, political actors and advocates, or graphic designers. You should know this. Yeah, the answer is political actors and advocates. And then don't forget this. Like I've mentioned, missionary phase, nationalist phase, institutional phase, digital phase. What was the defining feature of editing during the Nigerian military era? Was it a complete freedom of expression, absence of newspapers, editorial control and censorship, or focus on entertainment content? You knew that they were restricted, there are some censorship, and this is editorial control and censorship. Now, why does editing matter? Without even presenting this slide, I think you should know by now that editing is central to accuracy of information. It is important for clarity of communication. It is important for professionalism. It is important for the quality outputs and, of course, to ensuring that public trust is retained. Take note of this. Let's attempt this another quiz. During the 20th century, editing became more professional due to what? A. Reduced demand for news, elimination of errors, establishment of journalistic standard and ethics, decline in media organization. And during the 20th century, editing became more professional due to what? The answer is C. Establishment of journalistic standards and ethics. Okay. Editing as a defense against misinformation. I want you to, and I've mentioned this earlier, that if you don't edit, you're likely to misinform people. Editing is a process of reviewing, adding, and taking out, ensuring accuracy. So, editing will help you prevent errors like this, such as presenting publications of false and misleading content. It will help you reduce errors, avoidable errors. It will help ensure that the content you're publishing is verified. It will help you make sense of what you were not clear of if you diligently go through it. It helps you verify the facts and the sources. It helps you reduce chances of being involved in litigations and legal charges or being sued to court. So the key idea here is that poor editing can lead to reputational damage or loss of trust. Okay. Conceptual insight. I've introduced this to a few concepts, the concept of editing, the concept of graphics, and then now I'm mentioned the idea of gatekeeping. So you have to think about editing as gatekeeping. So this is on its own a concept. So editors as gatekeepers means that they decide what content is published, they decide what content is rejected, they decide what content become the public knowledge. They influence which voice and perspective are amplified. And the implication of this is that editing shapes public discourse. It also acts as a filter for information. They determine what goes in, what goes out. Let's attempt this. Which of the following best describe editing in a digital era? Slow and manual, limited to print media, real-time and multi-platform, completely automated without human input? The answer is real-time and multi-platform. Now, let's work and proceed ahead with editing, like I mentioned. This is yet another concept. Editing as a meaning construction. Editing as meaning construction means that you are editing to shape and to redefine to purpose the meaning. Editing is non-neutral, like I've mentioned. The choices of words, the structure, the visuals influences how the audience, the readers, interpret the content. So editing is not neutral. So know this and don't forget it. Okay? Now again, when I say it is non-neutral, it means it is not totally free from influences. It means the way headline is constructed, the framing of the headline, the framing of the lead, the choice of image and the words, they are all influenced by something. Editors do not just correct content, they shape the meaning. Okay. Take note of that. Let's have a case illustration of the same story, but of course, giving us different meaning. One will give you a neutral headline, the other will be a sensational headline. So I would like you to answer this question. How does the editing, how has it changed? How has it changed the audience perception in this context? Have a look. The first version of the headline says, federal government approves new education policy to improve digital learning in public schools. And version 2 says, federal government rolls out new education policy despite lack of computers in school. You know, these are the same story, but different meaning. The version 1 is neutral. Version 2 is sensational. Now, this is a version 1, neutral. Same story, different meaning. Version 2, sensational. Same story, different meaning. As an editor for newspaper A, I can choose to use one, and I can choose to frame it, and I can frame it entirely another way. This is editing. Now, take a look at these two versions and answer the question. Answer the question. Don't forget, the question is, how does editing change audience perception. These are the two headlines. The context is that a report states that federal government has approved a new education policy aimed at improving digital learning in public schools. However, funding and infrastructure challenge remains. That's the context. All right, in order to help you respond to this, I've put in this. Ask yourself these questions. Which headline would attract more click? Is it the first or the second? And why? Which headline builds more trust? Is it the first or the second? And why? If you are able to answer these questions, you will be able to answer the question. Now, the third one is, which headline would a government spokesman prefer? Is it the first or the second? And why? Or could it be the answering the fourth question there? Which headline would an opposition prefer? Opposition voice prefer? Is it the first or the second? And why? Put your answer in the comments. I'll stay here for a while. I've put an answer template in there. If you desire, you can, of course, if you know what to do, you can go outside of the frame. But the structure should be, in this case, illustration, blah, 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 blah. Ensure that you're writing full sentences. And don't just start with because. You notice that both headlines are based on the same underlying story. No fact has been changed, yet the interpretation shifts significantly. Okay. Pause the video as you're trying. Pause it. Version A presents the policy as a progress. It is a forward-looking and institutional base. But version B is sort of signposting limitation, introducing doubt and potential criticism. So this is showing that there is a critical principle that editing is not just about correctness. It is what the editor decides, what he chooses to emphasize, what he chooses to downplay, what audience notices first. I won't give you all the answers to this. Put it in the comments. Put it in the comments. In my next lesson, I'm going to provide further details on this. All right. If you've done that, you've done excellently well. Well done. For attempting alone is a win. Okay. I'd like to give you another exercise, independent. In the next slide, I'll provide a short, poorly written news paragraph, and I'm asking you to identify the errors, suggest improvement, and I just want to introduce you to practical editing thinking. So here is the content. I want you to identify the errors on this slide. Suggest improvements. Pause the video so that you don't miss it. Okay, if you have done that diligently, well done. This is what you should have. after editing. What has changed? What has changed? First, you see that there are some grammatical and agreement errors there. We have the word announce, which is the incorrect sort of tense. There is planning. Just study it and you see that. When you say policy and focus, doesn't make sense. Policy focuses on, school does not. It's a singular plural mismatch. Teachers is, no, subject verb disagreement. Should be teacher is or teachers are. Area is should be plural. We've got capitalization errors there. Study it, you see the errors. Punctuation errors there. Clarity and structural error there. Remember, it was one whole chunk of paragraph. Now it has become a paragraph with a structure. Study this and know it. Okay, let's move on. I have decided to introduce AI tools in editing into this lecture for it to help you to understand how you can begin to use AI, correctly. Think about this. AI is an assistant. It is not replacing you. What AI can do, well, it can do grammatical and language corrections. It can help with clarity and readability improvements. It is not good at initiating your original idea. AI can boost your speed and efficiency. AI can help you with basic content refinement. AI can help with headline suggestions, generating multiple headlines for you to make a comparison and select the best one. But it is not you. Again, take note of these things and apply it to every sphere of your learning. All of your assignments in school and outside of school. Your courses, your projects, and more. It's going to help you. Be in control of what you know and what you share, what you write, what you submit. AI cannot do certain things. This is not you. It cannot fact check with certainty. It may generate or accept inaccurate information because it is online. AI cannot give you context because you only understand the context. AI doesn't live in your environment, doesn't know the reality. AI doesn't know what is happening politically and socially, locally. It is you that know. That is where your voice should come in. AI can make editorial decision. AI can give you ethical reasoning because it is a human thing. Ethics varies from places to place. Laws varies from places to place, based on culture, based on tradition, based on what people agree, based on democracy. AI cannot help you with meaning construction. It cannot fully grasp the framing and how you want to achieve this, except you are an excellent prompt engineer. Yet, it's still not you, the computer. Okay, now, practical examples of tools, AI tools that can be used for editing. We have Grammarly, which is you can have as a plugin, as an extension in your Word app or in your Google Doc on your computer entirely. It can help with grammar and style corrections. We have ChatGPT, who could help with writing and summarizing and headline drafting, and you have to be very careful with it. Be very careful with your data and what you impute and what you put out. Sometimes you lose your voice because of doing these things. And we have Microsoft Editor, which has suggestion function. That's also AI powered. So AI has been with us for a very long time, even way long before ChatGPT. It helps you improve speed, surface level quality, but human editors should always ensure that it is truthful, factual, it's contextual, and it is credible. So these are the risks that you take when you leave everything to AI. You become over reliant leading to reduced human critical thinking. It leads to subtle errors that appears correct, but they are misleading. It leads to loss of editorial voice and originality. It leads to potential bias embedded in AI-generated suggestion because what? Those who train the models knows what they put in. So you have to be very careful on how you use AI. The common principle here is that AI assists the editor, but the editor remains responsible for accuracy, judgment, and meaning. If you submit an AI-generated content and you can't defend it, you can't explain it, you will be responsible and you pay for it. I'm asking you this. Have you ever used AI to write or edit something? Did you trust the output completely? Why did you trust it? And why didn't you? Okay. In today's lesson, we've been able to ensure clarity, accuracy, and professionalism. I've taken you through the history and graphics, enhanced communication, and engagement that editing evolves over time. And you can move from manual editing system like we have done over the course of history to digital that we are here now today. And editing plays critical role in what? Media credibility. Editing is also both gatekeeping and meaning construction. So these concepts are key. That's why I was able to introduce artificial intelligence in editing and how to use it appropriately. So AI improve speed, surface level editing, but human editor ensures truth, context, and credibility. Don't forget that. Here's an assignment for you. Find a recent news article, identify the strengths, the weakness, and I'll be asking you to submit a one-page analysis. If you check the description, you'll find a guide on how to submit. There will be a form there where you can make your submission. So to bring this particular session to a close, for the question time and then the checkout, let's answer this question. Which of the following best capture the major shifts in editing over time? From visual to textual communication, from manual correction to digital, rapid and multi-platform editing, from newspaper to book only, from accuracy to creativity. Which is the answer? B. Yes, that is the correct answer. Now, please, it's your time to ask questions. Screenshot it if you can't, directly engage it, and then click on the barcode, the QR code. It leads you to where you can ask questions. It's timed. Don't forget that. Ask questions, put in comments, and then let's engage. All right. If you've done that, you've done really well. If you've done that, you've done really, really well. Well done for making it to the end of the lesson. And then I would like to also ask you and prompt you to do the most important thing beyond just your learning. Check out. Check out. Okay. All right. So on these notes, in our next session, next lesson, we will be looking at the newsroom workflow, the roles and responsibility of sub-editor, and I'll be introducing you to the editing symbols. If you are curious to know quickly, you can move to the manuscript course where I have shared with you I've shared on my YouTube channel some ways you can communicate editing without writing words. We're using signs. All right, so if you've come to the end of this lesson, thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next lesson. Cheers and bye.